Martial arts kicks. So one of the more noteworthy, perhaps noticeable, maybe even the most fun elements of the martial arts are the kicks. At least as far as the basic actions go, the kicks are particularly enjoyable, they're particularly challenging, but they're fun. Right? It feels good to work on them and to improve, to gain skills in our precision, in our accuracy, and also to get better at the variations such as the jump kicks, spinning kicks, turning kicks, double kicks. So in this video we'll cover the basic elements of a standard kick, sort of separated, abstracted from any particular kick or from jumps or spins or any other type of variation, just the simple, basic, standard form of a kick. Right, so not even stepping from the back foot and not necessarily from the front foot, not spinning, not turning, not jumping, not adding anything else, but just the standard kick. And so when we talk about kicks in general, and in the most basic sense, we're not talking about stepping with them, at least the way I teach it, the way I like to describe the kicks. I want to try to strip it down to the most simple form, right? So removed, if it's a kick or hand technique, even removed from its stance that it usually appears in, removed from being a normal or a reverse motion, removed from any spinning or turning or double or jump or anything else. So for a front kick, for example, we'll think of just the kick as from this sort of a position, lifting up and firing that out. What does that look like in its most simple, most basic form? So taking the front kick as our example, but this works for the roundhouse, it works for the side kick, it works for most of our kicks. You'll have four main elements. First, you'll have the prepare of the kick, which will be called a chamber. That's when we bring our knee up and kind of get ready to fire that out. It's like pulling our fist back before punching out this way, right? We're preparing before executing a high block. Right, so the chamber is kind of like the prepare of the kick. And so it has to be strong, it has to be tight, and it has its own form. And it can be practiced as distinct from the actual motion in its entirety, because we want to practice each part so that when we put them all together, it gets that much better. And so there's a chamber, there's a prepare, and usually in the prepare, the knee is going to aim, or something is going to aim at my target. For a front kick, it's my knee. For a roundhouse, it's my knee. For a side kick, it's my hip, my butt. But from there, the second position will then be the execution, the extension of the leg, usually. So some kicks is kind of different, where your chamber, your prepare will be an extended leg, and then the execution is going to be pulling it back in. For example, like a hook kick, the actual execution is not straightening the leg, but pulling it back and bending it back towards you. But for most standard kicks, especially the pushing kicks, there's going to be a bend and then an extension. And so we pay particular attention to that prepare, the chamber, and to the execution, to the extension, to that sort of principal position that we associate with the kick. So remember, for example, with our stances, we talk about a stance, and usually we associate that snapshot image of what we practice. But we also want to remember that we're really working on the dynamic reality that the stance represents, like movement, energy, effort, force forward, or rotating backward, or down, or something like that, depending on the stance. Similarly for a kick, right? It's not just the snapshot of what it looks like when it's extended. It matters how it gets there, right? In a previous video, we covered, for example, how just ending here doesn't give you the whole story. Which kick it is depends on how it gets there. If it comes from behind, it's a roundhouse kick. If it comes from in line or even in front, then that's a side kick, or a spinning side kick, or a spinning back kick. But that's the difference. The path that the foot follows, the path that really any technique follows, really determines what that technique is. Right? That's what the motion is doing. So we have our prepare, our chamber, our extension, and then what? We don't want to stay there forever. One, because it's really hard and your legs get tired. Maybe somebody could catch it if we're not careful. But we also want to make sure that we're in control at all times. Right? So if I kick and I fall, well, even that was not a great example. So if I kick and then fall forward into the camera, into my opponent in sparring, into whatever, then I don't have control of myself. I have sacrificed my balance, I've sacrificed my stability, my coordination, my control for a strike that might not even land, it might not even be effective. You don't know. We can never be certain of the efficacy of any particular technique. That's why in sparring combinations are so important. Right? With more combinations, or rather with more techniques in a combination, we increase the likelihood of being effective, of scoring a point, or in self-defense, of delivering a good enough blow that we can get away. And so I want to make sure that I'm in control at all times. If I want to fire this kick out, I want to pull it back so that if I want to do it again, I can do that. Or if I want to step back, I can do that. If I want to step in front, I can do that. If I want to follow up and kick it this way, do whatever I need to do I have control of my body, of my limbs, and I'm not at the mercy of another. If this video is being helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you could like it and share it with someone else who could benefit from it. Thank you. And if you like these sort of slower, more in-depth explanations of things, please consider subscribing. Thank you again. So whatever kind of kick that is, sometimes techniques will have a controlled and uncontrolled version, and really that's just to practice the power of a more savage technique so that we don't hurt ourselves. But we always want to maintain control, particularly when we're practicing with the mindset of having another person there, particularly an aggressor in self-defense or in other consensual violence in combat, like in sparring or grappling or something like that. We want to always have control. We don't want to sacrifice control for any technique. It's not worth it. So 1, 2, and 3, right, to prepare execution or extension, and then pulling back to a re-chamber. It's not really a re-prepare necessarily, unless you're firing out again, but it's the prepare, the chamber, the execution, and the re-chamber. From there, that fourth stance kind of depends on where you're going. It's like if we had a position 0. It depends on where you're starting. Right? So when teaching the most general, simple, basic form of a technique, we can't really define where we're starting from. Sure, in training we might start generally from a front stance or generally from a certain particular type of stance. But we don't know if we're going to use sparring, if it's going to come up somehow in self-defense. We don't know where we're going to be when we need it. And so we need to practice in many different situations so that we can build those skills. So my position 0 can be from here, it can be from here, or I can use my lead leg to kick, I can use my back leg to kick, I can start from a wider stance, I can start from a narrower stance, something like this. I can be jumping back, I can be turning, I can be spinning, I can be doing all sorts of things. And we should practice those as we go. But to start, let's learn the basics. So cutting out position 0, wherever we're starting, and even cutting out that fourth position. So we want prepare from wherever we were, the extension, the re-chamber, and then again as we go, we'll practice going forward, going backward, going into a double technique, spinning, jumping out of that to do maybe 2 techniques like this. There are a whole bunch of things that we can do that we can practice in time. Well, thank you so much for watching. I hope that was interesting and helpful. Let me know if you have any questions, what other techniques you'd like me to cover. Hope to see you in the next video where we cover a front kick, the basic standard front kick, one of our most simple, basic, foundational kicks, though not to be overlooked in its practicality and in its functionality. It's very useful. Until then, fruitful training and have a great life.